This guy is so far left, but it's not about left and right. It's about the specific policies that he has espoused. This is a guy who stood in front of a burning city of Minneapolis in 2020 and thought that it was a wonderful thing. I mean, he's obviously a great fiddle player because, he's fiddling while his city burns. This is a guy who believes in abortion up until the moment of birth. And people say, oh, he's not that radical. Look at the legislation. He signed it. He was proud of it. He signed legislation that gave illegal people the right to have a Minnesota driver's license. That's tantamount to getting them registered to vote under motor voter. There are so many things about this that are troubling. I've heard the discussion this morning. Josh Shapiro was a choice that you could have said, yeah, he's young, he's got a lot of great ideas, he's very articulate, but he's Jewish. And in today's Democrat Party, the anti-Semitism that runs the Democrats, the anti-Israel, is just so overwhelming that he would be unacceptable. And that's disturbing to me as somebody who is very strongly for the alliance that our country has with Israel because of its strategic value. And it's ridiculous and sad and quite frankly borders on xenophobia and racism, to borrow a couple of terms from the Democrats, to be this against the Jewish people and the state of Israel.
Yeah, and you mentioned Walz's policies. Let's take a look at what a vote for a Harris-Walz ticket really looks like.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's better.
Should cities be allowed to be sanctuary cities?
Yes, local control. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
A society that does not put equity and inclusion at the center of it is certainly going to eventually come to the places where we're at.
So much to unpack there. We had Senator Rick Santorum on earlier this morning. He said it's very clear this is the most radical left-wing ticket we have ever seen in our country's history. Would you agree?
Yeah, when you make Bernie Sanders and AOC and Ilhan Omar happy, you just better recheck what you're thinking, because these people do not believe in the America that most of us have grown up with, embraced, love, and want to pass on to future generations. These people truly want to transform America into a socialist country. And his ridiculous statement that socialism is just being neighborly, that's one of the most absurd things I've ever heard of. Ask the people who were murdered under the socialist regimes over the course of the past 150 years, and ask them how wonderful was socialism when the government came in and told them what they could and couldn't have, what they could and couldn't do, where they could work, where they could go to school. If you want to strip us of our freedom, turn to socialism. This is when government becomes God.
Right.
And quite frankly, I've got a God. I don't need the government to become my God.
Exactly. So what worries me, though, Governor, is we know all about Tim Walz's policies and radical ideas, but a recent NPR Marist poll says 70% of registered voters have never heard of the guy. So we just heard from Caroline Levitt. How does the Trump campaign need to approach this duo moving forward and really hammer home what a Harris-Walz White House really means for America before these people head to the polls?
Well, they certainly have to spend some time contrasting. I would hope they focus more on the policies that he's purported and the things that he has signed into law and the way that he's led. There are so many ways to deal with that. But the other big piece of this is the Trump campaign just needs to remind us once and again every day of the difference this country had under Donald Trump than it has under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Economically, militarily, in terms of safety in our cities, in every single box that you check, Donald Trump's presidency was better for the average American and working class. Now, it may not have been better for the globalists, may not have been better for the elitist, may not have been better for Hollywood, because they really want socialism because they're all wealthy enough to live above it. But for average working people, they just need to remember they could afford gasoline and groceries and a trip to grandma's house when Donald Trump was president, and they can't now. I would say this, I think Kamala Harris may have picked him because his last name, Walz. These are the only walls that Kamala Harris will ever support. She was our border czar, whether she wants to admit it or not, and everybody said she doesn't believe in walls. She's proved that she does. She believes in walls, but just a different kind, not the kind that would actually protect our border.